We are of life, His shining gift, the measure of all things. Up from the dust our temples lift, our vision soars on wings. For seed and root, for flower and fruit, our grateful spirit sings. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever path you are on, you are welcome here. Just light it right here, just light it right here, just light it right here, just light it right here. We light our chalice every week as a symbol of our faith, a little bit of magic, because it says something about our heart, how we are a people of truth, of commitment, and of joy. Once again, welcome to everyone here. Welcome to the folks joining us virtually. You are brave folks this morning. If you are in the house today, today is, I guess, what, the day before the first day of spring? Am I getting that right? Okay, I'm looking outside. It doesn't feel right. So you are brave being here this morning. Thank you so much. Thank you for showing up for your own healing and well-being. And you're doing that for the other folks here in the space as well. We are all in this thing together. There's so much good that's going on here at West Shore. Check out the West Shore Weekly in your order of service about all the things coming up, all the ways that you can get involved. And when you go out into the sanctuary after the service, into the rotunda area, you can sign up for things at the various tables there. So check them out. Now let's greet each other warmly. And while we are doing this, children and youth are dismissed to their classes. If you see someone you have not met before, be sure to just take a moment and say hello. And maybe you can offer a wave to the folks at home joining us. Let's greet each other right now. So they just turned on my microphone, didn't they? It wasn't.
No, they didn't switch. Speak louder. Oh, that works. My name is Marty Travis. Probably most of you know me. I'm one of your parish nurses. But this morning I also wanted to introduce the other parish nurses. You probably know Barb Mishik, and we also have a new nurse, Judith Sellers. So I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Barb Mishuk, and I joined Marty with the parish nurse team in 2017. As far as my nursing career, I worked positions in clinical, education, and also IT, and I currently volunteer at the Lorain County Free Clinic. The reason I enjoy parish nursing is that we can share health information to members in a variety of ways.
I'm the Judith Sellers, and I'm happy to be here. Nursing's been the most wonderful and diverse career that I could imagine. And after I got my bachelor's, master's, and doctorate in nursing, I was sent back to school to become a family nurse practitioner, which has been great. And I've worked in free clinics in South Carolina and Arizona and now here. And I'm really happy to be taking on a new role as a parish nurse and learning from these two wonderful people. Thank you.
And I don't know if you all know this, but before I retired, I was a women's health nurse practitioner at the Mole Cancer Center at Fairview Hospital, specializing in GYN oncology and breast health. So that's a little bit about my background. But I want to tell you a little bit about parish nursing. Parish nursing in this country was started in 1982 by Granger Westberg, a Lutheran minister and chaplain in Park Ridge, Illinois. His work was based on the belief that health care transcends physical care, and healing involves the whole person in the context of their community. The term parish nursing was used because originally the nurses served Christian churches or parishes. There's a movement now to use the term faith community nursing, since nurses also serve temples and mosques. Locally, the parish nurse program began in 1992, about 10 years later, with the support of the Fairview Lutheran Foundation. At that time, eventually 60 churches had parish nurses. After the hospitals no longer supported the program, a new independent parish nurse group was formed, and we currently serve about 10 churches. We meet bi-monthly for education and networking, and the group is known as the Northeast Ohio Parish Nurse Group. What do your parish nurses do? We serve as counselors, meeting with church members to discuss health concerns and to evaluate the need for health-related services. We also act as a referral source to either health or social service agencies. We can arrange or present educational programs dealing with health-related topics. We write a monthly Shorelines column. You probably have read that at some point in time. And a pamphlet about parish nursing will soon be available. And as most of you know, we offer blood pressure screenings the first 3 Sundays of the month in Room A. At those times, we are glad to address any other health concerns you may have. All the information is kept confidential. You are an amazing congregation. Barb, Judith, and I are privileged to serve as your parish nurses. As Westberg said, we use a holistic approach in a community setting. When I was thinking of how I could convey to you how much this work means to me, I received an email on Friday from a church member who said, and I quote, "I wanted to thank you so much for your help and advice. When you were very comforting to me at a time when I didn't know where to turn." That, my friends, is why we do what we do. Thank you, all of you.
Come on, turn on my mic. There's Mike. Let me just make, one of our tech team folks is sick this morning. So we're going to do the best we can this morning with our technology. Thank you for your patience in advance. At any rate, now that I can speak, your parish nurses, when we talk about being a caring community, there's lots of levels to that in our community, and this is one of them. And I'm grateful for our parish nurses. They are here for you. But above all, I want all of us to know that our gifts of time and money and generosity of all sorts makes this possible. So ultimately, thank you. Thank you for making it possible for us to have the community that we do.
Good morning. Our reading today is from Robin Wall Kimmerer's book, Braiding Sweetgrass, as you know. And this is from Robin. Even before I arrived at school, I had all of my answers prepared for the freshman intake interview. I wanted to make a good first impression. There were hardly any women at the forestry school in those days, and certainly none who looked like me. The advisor peered at me over his glasses and said, "So, why do you want to be a major in biology?" His pencil was poised over the registrar's form. Well, how could I answer? How could I tell him that I was born a botanist? That I had shoeboxes of seeds and piles of pressed leaves under my bed? that I'd stop my bike along the road to identify any new species. Plants colored my dreams. Plants had chosen me. So I told him the truth. I told him that I chose botany because I wanted to learn about why asters and goldenrod look so beautiful together. I'm sure I was smiling then in my red plaid shirt. But he was not smiling. He laid down his pencil as if there was no need to record what I said. "Miss Wall," he said, fixing me with a disappointed smile, "I must tell you that that is not science. That is not at all the sort of thing with which botanists concern themselves. If you want to study beauty, you should go to art school." He told me that science was not about beauty, not about the embrace between plants and humans. I had no rejoinder. I had made a mistake. There was no fight in me, only embarrassment at my error. I did not have the words for resistance. He signed me up for my classes, and I was dismissed to go get my photo taken for registration. I didn't think about it at the time, but it was happening all over again, an echo of my grandfather's first day at school, when he was ordered to leave everything, language, culture, family, behind. The professor made me doubt where I came from, what I knew, and claimed that his was the right way to think. Only he didn't cut my hair off. In moving from a childhood in the woods to the university, I had unknowingly shifted between worldviews. The botany I was taught was reductionist, mechanistic, and strictly objective. Plants were reduced to objects. They were not subjects. The way botany was conceived and taught didn't seem to leave much room for a person who thought the way I did. The only way I could make sense of it was to conclude that what I had always believed was not correct, and everything about plants must not be true after all.
I'll sing the first two lines for you. Notice they repeat, and then you join me. The choir is then going to keep those two lines going while I teach you the next two lines, which repeat, and then sing with me on that. Return again, return again, return to the home of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the home of your soul. Everybody join me. Return again, return again, return to the home of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the home of your soul. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again.
Let us now share from the heart. Sorrows of our hearts, some of the joys and sorrows of our hearts that we bring here this morning. And I will take them into my meditations this week and pray for all that is our life. from? Where are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Powerful answers to this have come from modern science. Somewhere, something incredible is waiting to be known, said astronomer and writer Carl Sagan, and science is up to the task. That is what he said. Or is it? The kind of science Robin Wall Kimmerer met up with as a freshman in college, desiring to study why asters and goldenrod look so beautiful together, well, it was a sobering disappointment. That kind of science she met up with was reductionistic, mechanistic, and so-called strictly objective. That kind of science wanted to deprive her of her passion for plants in a troublingly similar way to how her grandfather, her native Indian grandfather, at the government boarding school, had been ordered to strip everything away of his heritage, to leave everything, language, culture, family behind. Years after this, having earned her PhD in plant ecology from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, having become a prominent scientist herself and named American Distinguished Teaching Professor of Environmental and Forest Biology at the State University of New York College of Environmental Science and Forestry, having received the highly distinguished John Burroughs Medal Award for her book Gathering Moss, having accomplished all of this, still, she wants to ask, does science allow us to perceive the sacred in our world? Or does it bend light in such a way as to obscure it? And then she says, a lens that brings the material world into focus but blurs the spiritual is the lens of a people made of wood. It is not more data that we need for our transformation, but more wisdom. Now, every human being ought to be concerned about this, since science has, is, and will have a tremendous impact on our future. But the issues Kimmerer is raising ought to perk up the ears of every Unitarian Universalist in particular, since we claim science as one of the principal sources of our faith, and we do so proudly. But maybe we should reconsider that. Maybe we should reconsider that if, as Kimmerer suggests, science is indeed a lens that brings the material world into focus but blurs the spiritual and therefore makes us into people made of wood. Now just let that image sink in. A people made of wood, hard, insensitive, inhuman, inhumane. It is the exact same sort of concern I have heard over and over again from other folks in the field of science, from people on the inside, people who are the loyal opposition. I want you to consider this story from medical doctor and holistic health pioneer Rachel Naomi Remen. She says, as a pediatric intern, I was a secret baby kisser. This was so flagrantly unprofessional, I was so careful not to be discovered. Late at night, under the guise of checking a surgical dressing or an IV, I would make my solo rounds on the ward and kiss the children goodnight. If there was a favorite toy or blanket, I would be sure it was close, and if someone were crying, I would even sing a little. I never mentioned this dimension of my health care to anyone. I felt that the other residents, especially the men, might think the less of me for it. She goes on, one evening, as I was talking to a patient's father in the corridor, I glanced over his shoulder and saw Stan, my chief resident, bend over the crib of a little girl with leukemia and kiss her on the forehead. In that moment, I realized that others too might be struggling to extend themselves beyond an accepted professionalism to express a natural caring. Perhaps there was a way to talk about these things, even to support one another. One night, when Stan and I were waiting to be called to the operating room for a C-section, I told him what I had seen and that it really meant something important to me. Now, although we were all alone in the doctor's lounge, Stan denied the whole thing. We dropped the subject in embarrassment. For the rest of the year, we worked together 36 hours on call, 12 hours off. We became trusted colleagues, good friends, sometimes occasional drinking buddies, but we never mentioned the incident again. Stan's integrity, she says, was almost legendary. He would never have fudged a piece of lab data or said he had read an article when he had not. But he would have had to step past our entire professional image and training to admit his heartfelt reaction to that little girl. It was impossible then. It is barely possible now. Expressing caring directly, rather than through a willingness to work a 36-hour day or spend long evenings keeping up with the medical literature and the newest treatments, transgresses a strong professional code. It was just not professional behavior. I stopped kissing the babies then. It did not seem worth the risk. She concludes, in some ways, medical training is like a disease. It would be years before I fully recovered from mine. That's the story from Rachel Naomi Remen, and it is heartbreaking. Healers wanting to obey a natural impulse to extend a caring touch, blocked by an ideology of scientific professionalism. Don't kiss the babies. Don't sing to the babies. Become like wood. Become like a person made of wood. And meanwhile, the children in the wards, they are touch deprived. They are lonely and crying. They are uncomforted. Babies needing kisses. Unkissed. It is heartbreaking. And it's the same heartbreak we see in braiding sweetgrass. When people like Robin Wall Kimmerer feel the land's love for us through the land's generosity of plants and animals. People like Robin Wall Kimmerer who feel delight in the world's complexity and beauty and feel a personal relationship with Mother Earth that becomes the central motivation for wanting to live more lightly and more justly upon this earth. People like Robin Wall Kimmerer and maybe people like us, you. But then along comes the reductionistic, mechanistic, and so-called strictly objective science, whose voice booms out as a big dominant culture voice and intones, demands, become like wood, become a person made of wood, deny your physical and spiritual wholeness. And you know, the tragedy is that the big dominant culture voice that says this, it says this out of a mistaken belief that doing this will enable scientists to be of greatest service to others, to do their job as best as humanly possible. See, that is the tragedy. Right now, as Unitarian Universalists, we must ask, does science have to be this way? Must science be this way. What are we? Where are we going? Now, philosophy professor Hoyt Edge would love to speak to the where do we come from part, specifically where reductionistic, mechanistic, and so-called strictly objective science comes from. I want to tell you this story. He sees it as a consequence, ultimately, of 16th and 17th century European thinkers trying to escape the oppression of the Christian church. Yeah. Enabled by Johann Gutenberg's invention of the printing press, which allowed scholarly ideas a freedom to roam in ways previously unseen. People like Nicholas Copernicus and Francis Bacon and René Descartes and Galileo Galilei, they argued for a division between what the church could be authoritative over and what scientists could be authoritative over. Modern science wanted more elbow room. Modern science wanted liberation from the interruptions and the interrogations of the Christian church. To get it, nothing less than a new way of looking at the world was born. Reality was to be divided into two categorically different substances, matter and mind. Now, the Christian church would continue to be authoritative, but only over the realm of the mind, which is the realm of values and purposes and free choice. On the other hand, says Professor Hoyt Edge, there was matter, which presumably was non-thinking and had nothing to do with values. An atom is neither good nor evil, right? Some of you look confused by that. Right? Yeah, no. The material world was simply a machine that was determined. And the only concern that the Christian church ought to have about it was simply that it was the creation of God. Now, for a time, the Christian church and secular science, they each had their own spheres of expertise, separate from each other, cut off from each other. For a time, it seemed to work. The divorce seemed to be amicable. But there was something about that metaphor that the physical universe and all the plants in it, all the animals in it, that the physical universe is like a grand cosmic machine without mind or soul. Something about this metaphor, its momentum was unstoppable historically. One watershed moment was Charles Darwin's Origin of Species, with its theory of natural selection, of evolution, which made a lot of intelligent people question whether Christianity ought to be seen anymore as wise about matters of ethics in mind, never mind the physical world. Near the end of the 19th century, a certain belief about reductionistic, mechanistic, materialistic science started to emerge. That this kind of science was not just an extremely powerful method for discovering truths about the physical world, but that it was the method of discovery for all truths, that it ought to be. Now, this belief has a name. This belief has a name. The name is Scientism. How many of you have heard that name before? Scientism. Great, I'm so glad you came today. We're learning new vocabulary today, scientism. When Robin Wall Kimmerer speaks of reductionistic, mechanistic, and so-called strictly objective science, this is what she's talking about. She never uses that word in the book, but this is what she is talking about. This is the science that she encountered as a freshman coming into college, her botany professor saying what he was coming from a place of scientism. Now, it is really important to affirm that not all science is scientism. Not all science is scientistic. Non-scientistic science affirms that there are realms which are beyond what it can know and respects that. Respects alternative ways of knowing. But not so with scientistic science. Scientistic science is absolutist. It is fundamentalist. It says that anything that truly exists must be observable through your 5 physical senses or through physical measuring instruments like telescopes or microscopes, which only serve to extend the 5 physical senses of your body. But if you are not able to observe something in this way, if you cannot reduce it to a number or a mathematical description, well, it doesn't exist. It is superstition. Perhaps the bluntest example of scientism comes from 1961, after Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first human being to ever journey into outer space. Sometimes later, the Soviet Union premier Nikita Khrushchev said during a plenary session of the Central Committee, he said, "Why are you clinging to God? Gagarin flew into space and he didn't see God." Now, note how thoroughly mechanistic and materialistic the assumptions underlying this are. Here's the assumptions. If God exists, then God must take up physical space somewhere. And there's no better place for God to do that, apparently, than in outer space. But Gagarin went into outer space and he saw squat. Therefore, there is no God. God is nonsense. God is superstition. It's that metaphor of the machine, folks. Reality as a physical machine. The 16th and 17th century European thinkers who started this ball rolling could not have known what they were setting up. They could not have known what they were setting loose upon our world. They could not have known that they were letting a genie out of the bottle. Of course, the science premised upon this mechanistic metaphor, of course, it would lead to astounding insights and technologies. But its magic puts humanity at risk of becoming turned into something wooden. People becoming made of wood. People becoming machine-like also. So you don't kiss the babies in the hospital. You don't sing to the babies in the hospital. You don't ask why asters and goldenrod look so beautiful together. You don't allow your empathic feelings for the land to get in the way of your studies. That's a people made of wood. The irony of ironies is that when scientistic science claims to offer complete knowledge about everything, it takes on a religious dimension. It becomes a church in its own right, the church of scientism. The irony is that it thinks it is objective, but it is anything but that. Its faith commitment that a thing exists if and only if it can be physically observed and mathematically modeled cannot be physically observed and mathematically modeled. Did that make sense? It is self-contradictory. It is time to push back against scientism. If science is to be a critical truth source for Unitarian Universalists, it cannot be the scientistic version in all its faith-based, fundamentalistic arrogance and narrowness. Robin Wall Kimmerer was right. Her dream is right. I dream, she says, of a world guided by a lens of stories rooted in the revelations of science and framed with an indigenous worldview. Stories in which matter and spirit are both given voice. If the only tool you have is a hammer, you're going to see every problem as a nail. If your only ways of engaging the world are through your 5 physical senses and their extensions through technology, then you are going to hammer down a lot of things that are not nails. Caring is not a nail. Beauty is not a nail. Meaning is not a nail. God is not a nail. The spirit, the soul is not a nail. For our knowledge of the world to flourish, for it to be as broad and as deep as it can be, we must tune our ways of knowing so that they are in sync with the thing or the being we wish to know about love. Don't inspect a loved one through a magnifying glass and expect to get any answers. Trust me, it's a bad relationship move. What would you do, Rachel? One morning I wake up and I'm looking at you through a magnifying glass. It just wouldn't be good. It's not a smooth move. To know about love, open your heart. Make mistakes. Make amends. Learn how to be vulnerable. Learn how to be strong. Scholar Michael Polanyi would call this type of knowledge tacit knowledge. In that it may be very hard to explain to others, it may be impossible to express mathematically, yet it is still real knowledge. Add to it the sort of knowledge that is a matter of physical observation and mathematical modeling, and it just means we get smarter. Multiple ways of learning can only make us smarter and wiser. There is a place, in other words, for professional reserve in medicine, and there is a place for kisses and hugs. And if you're really nice to our parish nurses, maybe get some hugs. Sorry, guys. Yeah, Marty's like, what? And there is a place for the 5 physical senses and their extensions through technology, for the study of nature. There is. And there's also a place for empathy, for the intelligence of the heart and the spirit, which reveals that humanity and nature are bound together in something magical. Maybe love. We got to draw from it all. Our approach to knowing the world must be eclectic, interdisciplinary, integral. We must engage multiple forms of consciousness, not just the rational. I dream of a world guided by a lens of stories rooted in the revelations of science and framed with an indigenous worldview, stories in which matter and spirit are both given voice. Do you like that dream? Oh, let's dream that dream with her, people. Let's dream that dream as Unitarian Universalists. Let's dream that dream with her. Let's extinguish our chalice. Say these words together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry with us until we meet again. Far beyond the grasp of hands, or light that meets the eye, past the reaches of the mind, there find the key to nature's harmony, in an architecture so entwined. Like the birds whose patterns grace the sky, and carry all who join in love expanding, the message of peace will rise in flight, taking the weight of the world upon its wings. In the oneness of everything. Peace is in the dance of trees, who stir before the first breath of wind is yet perceived. Trust in the song becoming one with the dance, and all mysteries can be believed. Songs of lives long past that touch our own are written in the earth, ever giving. And now to maintain the harmony gives to us all lives worth living, for the oneness of everything. Still we seek to find a truth that we might understand and reduce to terms defined. Vast and immeasurable time and space, also overwhelmingly designed. Oh, passing years, just might I know the faith that winters in the heart, to be reborn in spring, to to hear and to feel the pulse of life enters my soul as a song to sing of the oneness of everything. May we leave this place today as a full-hearted, justice-hearted people, full of the strength of empathy to understand the things of our world in a way that allows them to fully reveal themselves. Not a people made of wood, but a people of living flesh, living substance, sensitive, responsive, attentive to the sacred in everything. May it be so. So did you wear that shirt because of the read?